The last three movies that I've gone to see in the theater, John Wick Chapter 4, Dungeons and Dragons, and the Super Mario Brothers movies, have all been fantastic. This is the first time in a while that I've really been enjoying going back to the movie theater and just sitting down and having fun. And on top of that, I've been discovering all of these other really fantastic stories, going back and rewatching some older shows or finding some new shows. One such story that I recently came across, which has been just an absolute delight, has been the manga Kimi wa Maido-sama. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's just a great story about an assassin who becomes a maid for this teenage boy and just all of the fantastic shenanigans that happen afterwards. And what I've realized is that I'm just having a whole lot of fun. Storytelling should be fun. And as writers, we need to be having fun as well. Hi there, everyone. Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And I emphasize fun. Writing should be a delight. Telling your stories should be fun. The moment that it's not fun to tell your story, the moment that becomes a chore, you need to step back and take a break. Go do something else. Reevaluate what you're doing with this story or what you're doing this story for. Why are you writing it? And if fun isn't a part of the equation, again, you've got to give yourself a break. This has been something that's been weighing heavily on my mind for two reasons. One is that some months ago, I just had the absolute hardest week doing any sort of writing. And it got to the point where I realized I'm just not having any sort of fun with this. This is just drudgery. This is a chore. And I had to take a couple of days to step back and completely reevaluate. Where am I going? What am I doing? What are my goals? How much fulfillment am I getting from writing? Am I writing just simply to try to make money? And because it's hard to make a living as an author, well, you're going to fail way more times than you're going to succeed. And if that's just your one measurement of success, well, you're going to find yourself very depressed very fast. Fun is a necessary component. And then another thing that happened is that I went and visited some friends and we just sat down for a day and binge watched Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I hadn't seen any episode of this series yet, and it was just so much fun. We were laughing, we were chatting, I was theorizing, and they were laughing behind their hands saying, well, I won't tell. And it was just fun. And those two things made me begin to realize just how important it is to enjoy your work. I once had a reader reach out to me and say, hey, you know what? I could tell when you kind of lost interest with certain parts of your story. It was a great story to read. It was a lot of fun, but I could tell that you weren't having fun. And that's a bit of criticism that has stuck with me. And it's a lesson that I have had to relearn multiple times. And as such, I feel like it's crucial then that I come out here and say, hey, have fun with your story. Because if you aren't having fun writing it, if you aren't writing it because you love these characters and you love this world and you love the journey that they're going on, their romance or their lack thereof, the humor or the horror or the drama or the complete comedical horrible slapstick effect, whatever it is that you're writing from drama to horror to comedy to psychological thriller to revenge to whatever it is you're writing, you have to enjoy it. Now, that might seem like well, duh, Lars, of course you got to enjoy your story. But again, if a reader could tell when I wasn't having fun within certain chapters of one of my books, that doesn't just go for me, that goes for others. And I have seen that as I've looked at what other authors have done. So, to give an example, I'm going to pull out one of my favorite punching bags, George R. Martin, and be like, okay then, here's the thing, I can tell you with absolute certainty where I know that he had the most fun writing his stories, and it is his sexplanations. Why is that? Because they are ridiculously over the top. And I have a personal theory that he doesn't stop writing these ridiculous scenes until he giggles. Why is that? Because again, if you actually read through most of his stories, especially his famous sexplanation scenes, almost all of them are actually worthless. Why is that? Because he already intended to kill those characters ahead of time. He already planned to completely derail that subplot. Why? Because that's just what he does. He's mostly a one-trick pony. So how then can he keep you there for those one-trick ponies? How can he bring himself to write these ridiculously long stories that go absolutely nowhere? Well, it's because he's having fun writing those ridiculous scenes. And again, you can actually tell this in the later books. I would say this, for the first 2 books within The Song of Ice and Fire, you can tell that he's honestly enjoying himself throughout most of the books. But definitely by the time that we get to A Dance of Dragons, oh my gosh, you can tell he is bored with half of the book. It just, there's nothing that really is there to grip you. It's just history lessons and pointless politics, because none of it's going to go anywhere. And you can encounter the same thing as well when you look at fanfiction. There are some fanfictions where you begin reading them and you realize, wow, this author had an idea of what they wanted to do and then realized, oh, I should probably explain this. And there's just these boring blotches and blocks within their fanfiction where it's just like, okay, I know I have to do this, blah, 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 blah. There you go. Now let me get to the thing I really wanted to write. And then that's where the fanfic picks up again. Well, here's the thing, is that we don't want our stories to be like that, because that can ruin the experience for our audiences. I know that there are some parts in every single one of our stories that have been harder to write. And again, I speak from experience. One of the books I have coming out later this year, The Monarch Mercenaries, I had to take a step back from it because that book was just an absolute slog to get through. There was so much that I wasn't enjoying. And one of the things I wasn't enjoying, surprisingly enough, was the world building, and the world building to the story is so vital. So I had to take a step back, and I just had to get lost in this universe of The Monarch Mercenaries and find fun in it. It took some months. Actually, it took a year. It took a year to then later on come back to the book, tackle it again, and this time after having spent months just playing around in the sandbox and finding what was fun for me, I was able to take all of that fun, slap it right where it needed to go, and I could take the crazy world building aspects and make them enjoyable. I made all the different character arcs enjoyable. I made the action, which the action became a slog, and that's awful. I made that enjoyable because I had found what was fun. Now then, I wish that I could just simply say, hey, here you go. Here is a formula for how you create fun. But if there's one thing that the MCU has currently taught us with its formulaic approach to storytelling, it's that after a while, what was once enjoyable kind of loses its charm. And it is possible to overdo something, or it's possible to take something that was quote-unquote perfect and then ruin it by trying to add a little bit more. We don't want to do that. Again, there's no real formula for fun. Some people may say there is, but there really isn't, because what's fun for me might not be fun for you, and what's fun for one audience will not be fun for another. So instead, what you've got to do is this. You have to find what is enjoyable for you to write. And this is where things get a little bit crazy right here, because you have to write for yourself, but you also have to write for your audience. Well, how exactly does this work? Because you are not exactly your audience. I don't care what the specialists and what the advertising gurus have to say. You are not your audience. So how can you write for yourself and then write for your audience? Well, I actually take a cue from Murder Drones. Studio Glitch and Liam Vickers said that they looked out at what kinds of audiences there were and what stories were being told, and they realized that the humorous approach to dark fantasy and dark sci-fi, basically Gravity Falls, but made for a slightly older audience, so like late teenagers, early young adults, that niche was not being addressed in any kind of way. So there's the audience. However, when you watch Murder Drones, especially if you've looked at any of Liam Vickers' other things, you realize that this show is absolutely Liam Vickers' story. This is everything that he wants to do with horror. This is everything that he wants to do with humor. These are his characters. He is enjoying writing and creating this whole world, this plot, its mysteries, and the hilarious and horrifying characters that are in it. And by him and Studio Glitch just having fun with this story, audience that they realized that they could reach out to then received the story. If Murder Drones was not as fun or as funny or as engaging as it has been made, it would not land well with its intended audience. And because it's made so well, there are people outside of that audience that are coming to it. As I've introduced Murder Drones to my friends, there are people who definitely avoid those kinds of stories. But because Murder Drones is just made so well, people are like, you know what? I am going to give that a try. They watch it and they love it. And why is that? Because it is fun. So, what is my writing advice to you? It is this: simply have fun writing your stories. If you're not having fun, take a break, rewind a little bit, find what is fun for you with that story or with another story, and then get back to work. Don't just give yourself a break and be all like, I am going to find fun somewhere out there. Again, we don't want to do that because that's actually going to derail your creative process. You have to be able to find fun in the creative process. And if you're not having fun doing a current project, that doesn't mean that you pump the brakes, go full stop, and don't do anything. No, that means take a step back and then find where you can have fun and then reapproach the story so that way you can make it the way that it needs to be, so that way you are enjoying it and that it becomes the story that it needs to be. Just remember, you need your stories need you, and the world needs your stories. But the world will not accept your stories, you will not accept your story, and your story will not accept you unless you are having fun with it. And with that being said, if you're looking for more solid writing advice, please feel free to check out our other videos here on our channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem. We also have writing exercises for all of our fellow novice writers out there over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for all of you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. We got a whole lot more that we're going to be looking at, and this is a great adventure that we would love for you to come join us on. Thank you for watching, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.